Tashidele luptukso, ani tashdele genla, kusudevo imbela.
Tashdele Cindy-la, ani luptukso la yang tashdele ye, ani ngat devo yi, ani Cindy-ya devo imbe.
Layang, ngayang devo yi, layang, I said. Ngayang devo yi. Tishiche. La solo luptukso, tering, we are at the end of week 6. Sorry. This is your last day of week number 6. And we're going to divide this lesson into 2 or 3 potential recordings because there's a lot of material to cover. And so we are now going to introduce you to lesson 18 and also lesson 19, which is coming as part of this, to the nominalizers and relative clauses. Okay, we are only going to introduce you to the vocabulary list for lesson 18. We have taken out lesson 19 for now because lesson 19 is a wonderful vocabulary. It's all about the Losar customs and traditions of the New Year in the Tibetan cultural system and traditions. But because we have such a limited time now and still a lot of material to cover, then we've decided to just give you this vocabulary list, which is very, very useful. And it has a lot to do with cultural practices and pilgrimages and religious traditions as well. So please keep that. That's why you won't have to memorize number 19. So Genla is first going to read it for you, and then we will introduce the nominalizers for you.
Lasso. So tering anzo lobzen job jepe sixer login. Lasso lobzen job jeba ninja ki course about pilgrimage. This pronunciation is we nasalize nangel, not like najal. Najal is like nangel. Okay. Tine nangel. Yang ne ko ne tu chin pu marme chume. Okay, here for the marme, usually when there's this ma and ra stand one word, we just pronounce ma, right, without this sound ra, just ma. But when this ma and ra and comes in the first syllable, and then we produce a little bit ra sound, marme. Lasso. Tene nganzo chume. Tenzo ni chikbare. Kada. Chima. Sangye. Chu. Gendun also nasalized, same as like mindu. So gendun, we don't say getun. Okay. Buddha Dharma Sangha. Sangye chu gundun. Okay. Komshi. Shiga. Joba. Then pensim. Same thing ne. Nying takbane. Okay. We say nying takbane tujiche. Thank you from bottom of my heart. Tene nganzola genzi kashetu. Tendeli yakbo. Mixel. Söde chembo. Double, similar, synonym. Sönam chembo. Lungda tobo. Lungda mawo. Okay, we read this panarpo as a wo, wanarwo. Lungda mawo. Okay, kanang chembo. Rignazo. Nima ninkang. Cenkang. Tukbo. Pendo chembo. 펜도 첨부, 로고 첨부, 로고 첨부, 지코 차보, 지코 차보, 장보, 장보, 양나 릭바 장보, 릭바 장보, 잠보, 잠보, 신앙 차보, 신앙 차보. 그래서 로 첨부, 로 첨부. 오케이. 슉 첨부, 슉 첨부. 순주의 첨부, 순주의 첨부. 야랍, 야랍. 마랍, 마랍. 서바 첨부, 서바 첨부. 룽사보, 룽사보. 셈바교보, 셈바교보. 까딘 첨부, 까딘 첨부. 냠충, 냠충. Okay, this looks like a nyamchung, right? Inayang and this has actually two spellings. One is comes sa with head letter sa and then tingbo nyamchung, nyamchung. So they are also pronounced nyamchung. They drop the head letter sa. There's two pronunciations. So people use this nyamchung is like more like nyamchung, nyamchung. Okay. Then nyamchung, nyamchung. Yeah, they hardly pronounce nyamchung. So just nyamchung, nyamchung. Okay. 고틱보, 고틱보. 로고 충중, 로고 충중. ngozachembo, ngozachembo. 체와차보, 체와차보. 켄차보, 켄차보. Okay. Looks like ket차보, right? We never pronounce, when we speak, we don't say ketsabu. We pronounce as like nasalized, kensabu, kensabu. Like same as mindu, we has like kind of like suffix na. Same here, like kind of suffix na, kensabu, kensabu. Tene ngangju ringbo, ngangju ringbo. chopsabu, chopsabu. Simshuk chembo, simshuk chembo. 한바 첨부, 한바 첨부, 잉 첨부, 잉 첨부, 토낭 첨부, 토낭 첨부, 쥐도 차부, 쥐도 차부. 라서 되네 안솔라 차직, 마니콜로콜, 마니콜로콜, 착셀, 착셀, 카든든, 카든든, 멜람자. 멜람자, 라마젤, 라마젤, 조송동, 조송동, 소자, 소자, 소, 소, 세다동, 세다동, 냐르, 냐르, 샤빵, 샤빵, 참라드, 참라드. Hola, so Sarsong. So
Plus again, sorry.
So,
did you have something to say? I interrupted again.
hola, so yeah, tigitu. Okay, if you have questions from the vocab, you can just bring to the live review. These words are very useful. Sikdinzo be yakbutu. So Cynthia, banda kogimindu.
Oh, I wasn't speaking and I had a problem with internet. Can you see my screen now?
This kuwa tanda tongimindu.
I was just saying to the students.
Keje yabu kogidu.
Oh, lasso. I was saying to the students that the vocabulary is a little long because there are a lot of adjectives that are very, very useful. So we combine them from other lessons. since we're not going to study vocabulary for lessons 17, 19, and 20. So that's why we made it a little longer to give you more useful words combined in there. Again, are you able to see the screen?
통그도, 다다 통그도.
Lasso. So I'm sorry, I took off the video because I think the internet right now is not supporting it. So I hope you can hear me. And again, if you can't hear me, please let me know and I will stop speaking and wait for it to resume.
Lasso.
Thank you. Okay, so let me briefly introduce this very important lesson. As we have told you in the class, it is a really important topic, very, very, very crucial in our whole curriculum for the beginning year and for really learning to speak Tibetan well. There are 4/5 nominalizers that are going to be the subject of lesson 18. And we are dividing it into 2 today. We are going to only introduce, so they are ya, ken, sa, pa, or gyo. And we're going to introduce you only to yak and ken today, and sa and pa and gyo will come in a different lecture. So each one of these nominalizers plays a very important role in refining your basic statements and turning them into more elaborate ones, and particularly creating relative clauses, as we will see in the context of lesson 19. So now we're only going to introduce the root meaning behind each one of these nominalizers. And then in a combination with the connective particle, we will show you how relative clauses are formed. So yak, and we will give you, some of these tend to have different pronunciations, especially when used in the oral register. And therefore, we will give you those differences in pronunciation as we introduce them. So yak indicates the infinitive of the verb or the ing in statements such as, for example, when we say climbing mountains is a skill. And it refers to the thing that is being mentioned in the sentence as an object. You will understand what I mean by that more in the review live session when I give you the same example using different examples, using the same noun and different nominalizers. The same verb, with nominalizers. That's something that I will do once we see each other in the class live. For example, if I say chia, chi as the verb to write, and I put yak next to it, it means the thing that is used for writing. This is what I mean by that. Okay. Now ken. And so yak can be also pronounced as ye, and ken can be pronounced as nyen or ngen, also depending on the regional variation. And ken indicates the one who does the action, usually the person who does something, or sometimes the one who goes somewhere. It's really associated with the verb to go also. And in that case, it can be used with inanimate objects such as the bus or an animal that goes somewhere, even though animals are animate objects, animate beings, I would say, not objects, of course. So ken is very helpful in creating words describing professions as well. So if you don't know the word for cook, for example, if you don't know that the word for cook or chef is machen, then you can say kalak soken. Okay, so you need a verb before that. These nominalizers are called nominalizers because they nominalize the verb that they are associated with. That's a very important thing to understand. Then it is used in statements such as the one who is offering that flower is my friend, for instance. Okay. Then sa indicates the place upon which the action is done, the indirect object of a verb, which is also called the recipient. It is used in statements such as the lama to whom I gave that flower is from Ladakh. So to whom I gave, that shows the indirect object. And we will see other examples when we explain sa in detail. Okay. And then finally, pa or gyo in the oral register, especially speaking colloquially, gyo tends to be used a lot. And it's usually mainly used in relative clauses expressing actions that are stating in the past, but also expressing the fact that something happens. You will see that in our examples. Or the thing which has, that is particularly described as having something. For example, when I say the tea that has sugar, like the sweet tea, I'm going to express it maybe also with pa or yo. Okay, we will see that in examples. So this is just a very brief overview so that you have an idea of what it is that we are going to be working with over the course of these 2 lessons. So let's start with yak, which can be pronounced as ye, okay? And it's let's look at its main grammatical functions. So this is actually very important. The fact that what comes before yak is usually a verb in the present or future tense. First of all, the first usage is just a reminder, something that you already know, and it doesn't really belong in this lesson, but I included it in this chart so that you know everything that yak is doing. Okay, so the first use of yak that we have seen is to indicate this future tense auxiliary. And we've had some really wonderful questions in the class about this, so you will probably remember when I say that this is the auxiliary that is used usually in confirmation when something has been confirmed that you will do in the future tense, and that is an immediate future. Okay, so that's why it is used. And we're not going to go back into this. We only have a couple of examples here so that you remember what it's like, okay, that we will read in a minute. But now let's move on to the real nominalizer function of yak. So it nominalizes verbs. And when it does, it can mean either in order to, especially when you have a verb plus yakla, which is similar to saying chetu. This is probably something that you will hear in especially with your ALIs. And so this is very common. Another function that it has is that it shows the purpose of an object. So for example, when I say nugu chiyare, I mean the pen is for writing. It shows the purpose for that particular object. And again, we will discuss that more in the context of examples and in the classroom. And then finally, it also can be understood as creating the infinitive or the ing with verbs or with adjectives as well, such as, do you remember the kad function of that nominalizer when we say with a motion verb, I go to the swimming pool to swim? So this to swim is used with kad because of the verb, motion verb, I go. But now if my ending verb is different than a motion verb, then the nominalizer that is going to be used instead of kad is going to be yak. So this is what we're going to be talking about. So now let's look at the example so that this becomes a little more clear. So the first 2 are the future meaning that we've previously learned, as I've just mentioned. La sogenla.
Nga cheranki nangla doyayin.
So it means I will be going, or I will go to your house, and it means that it's confirmed and that it's happening, could be in the immediate future as well. Okay, so just a very simple reminder of what we've studied already in the context of lesson 7 in the future tense. Lasso.
Tene iba konzo teptayare. Konzo teptayare.
So they will be reading a book, they will read a book, same thing. Okay, so just so you have a dak and a shen example, again, to review this function. Now in the next part is really now the nominalizer functions of yak so that you can see clearly what it's doing. And I've mixed all of them, okay? So each sentence will tell you one of the functions. Okay, here we go.
Lasso tuglo tuya tezo kabayore. Tuglo tuya tezo kabayore.
Okay, so we could translate this as, where are those clothes to wash? So truya, tru here is the verb to wash. And you see that it's followed by yak. It's making the infinitive because we have it we have a verb in the middle of a sentence without a conjugation. And so we need the nominalizer yak to make it into an infinitive because it is showing the purpose of the tuglo, basically the thing that tuglo has to undergo. All right, so literally it means the clothes for washing, meaning the clothes that are dirty and need to be washed. This is one of the meanings of the yak. Okay, lasso.
드네 추디 퉁이엘 말에 이내 추파기 퉁이엘을.
Okay, so this, here I gave in brackets the other pronunciation of yak, which is ye, but of course in any one of these sentences, okay? It doesn't mean that only here it can be applied. So this water is not for drinking. So let's say you're in a scenario where you're pointing at a few bottles of water and you're trying to tell the person you're talking to that that water is for other purposes. It's not drinkable water, okay? So that's why you say it's not for drinking. This shows the purpose or the thing that can be done or cannot be done on that particular object, which in this case is chu. And then yine chu pagi tunyare or tunyere. However, that water over there, oh, I forgot to write it, sorry. That water over there is indeed for drinking, okay? Lasso.
So here ya and ye is you can just interchangeable. Some textbooks you can see yasa ye, and then here in RBI we just use yaka yak. Okay, so which one is comfortable for you? Ye or ya, and then you can use either one. This is just very colloquial, how to say, structure grammar. So chudi 퉁예 말에 or chudi 퉁야 말에. Okay. So some textbook, suppose this textbook, I see yasa ye. Okay, this is beginning textbook of Plaza Tibetan. So we see yasa ye. So you can use which one is comfortable for you when you're talking. So you can use that. So tine peyula kumbajeya mangbu yorebe. Peyula kumbajeya mangbu yorebe.
So are there many monasteries to visit in Nepal? Okay, so again, the Jaya is really qualifying the Gompa. Are there monasteries that one can visit that are there for visiting, right? So that's why it says that it's modifying the noun, that the yak is associated with a verb that modifies a noun prior to that. Lasso.
Lasso tine cherang ngala ngu yaria mebe.
So this is a very common question, I would say. Maybe, don't you have any money to lend me? If you're talking to a friend maybe or something, maybe you're sharing a cup of tea and it's your turn to pay for the bill or something, and then you would say a sentence like this in that environment. Lasso.
Nga she tongya la pekabuyo. Nga she tongya la pekabuyo. Or you can say nga she tangya la pekabuyo. This is Asul Hasa people use just tang for all three tenses.
Yes, exactly. I'm going to put it in brackets because this is really important. So we use them sometimes interchangeably in the class so that you get in the habit of hearing both. I tend to use tang a lot more because I was taught that many years ago and it just stayed as a habit, Sometimes we have our speaking habits. So it just means I love singing. I really love, like, pe is the emphasizer, okay? And I really love singing. So why is the la here? This is important. We've discussed it today in one of our classes. Is because the object of the verb of when you say that you like something is usually indicated by the la. So it's important that you give it there. And sometimes people might omit it when they speak really quickly, but it's important to make sure to say it if one is trying to speak more properly. Lasso?
Laro, ngala chala nyoya kashe yuezang tomla tering dogore.
Okay, so I have to go to the market because I have to buy some things, or I have some things to buy. Okay.
So then, lobtruk tezo, pyoge jangya kale kakpo chene mindu. Lobtruk tezo, pyoge jangya kale kakpo chene mindu. Okay.
Learning Tibetan isn't hard at all for those students. So we haven't seen this kyune mindu yet, and I wanted to introduce it. It's very useful. So kyune means not at all, definitely not, and it is always negated. Okay, it is always used with a verb and a negation. So this is a good sentence to inspire you to think, of course, that it's not hard to learn Tibetan. Lasso. Next sentence, please, Genda.
Lasso, 주시 제야 기부두가. 주시 제야 기부두가.
Okay, so it is fun to travel, isn't it? Or traveling is fun, right? So here is one of the examples where the ya with an adjective, okay, kipo in this case, can be either translated as a infinitive verb in English or as an ing form, because this might be used more colloquially when you're speaking English. Lasso.
Lasso tene chöpala nyamne cheya dang gom jaya te kechemboshira yore, okay? Chöpala nyamne cheya dang gom jaya te kechembo. Sisina dinangla tezo lukna yakutua, ni le mangwadua.
Oh, regena.
Lasso.
Chepa nyamlen cheya tangom
Gom jaya tezo.
Lasso. Okay, so here,
lasso.
practicing and meditating is very important for Dharma practitioners. So shida is also an intensifier like pe, like we had over here, like this one, okay? Now, one quick thing that we want to teach you, we haven't spoken about this yet. Pe is used only in positive statements, and shida can be used in positive and negative statements, okay? So this is important. Now, this tetso here that we have Te and Gena just asked to add tetso is a very different use of the demonstrative pronoun than we've learned so far. And it plays a very important role with nominalizers and relative clauses. The grammar aspect of it can be a little bit advanced, a little bit. It's not hard, but it just requires a strong command of really understanding relative clauses properly. So I don't wish to get into the details too much. So know that you're going to see it, and if it feels natural as you learn this material to insert it at the end of the clause, it's really to clarify the clause, but do not feel too discouraged if you're not fully grasping the meaning of it. But it doesn't mean those here, okay? It doesn't mean that. So just keep it in mind that it's a new, different use of the demonstrative pronoun. I don't know, Gela, do you want to say something about it?
tanda ti tezo labna chidang ti dos rawa chagi duwa tanda nyamlen cheya chik cherawa gom jaya rawa gom dang nyamlen rawa chadu mune china gom dang nyamlen tezo rawa tezo labna ti gom dang nyamlen ti kola keze shegi yore ya ti meba yena tigire chöba la nyamlen cheya da gom jaya khe chenpo shira yore o shira re ti tezo mena yang tigire
Inji kenang la dos tan chatsi ing yogyo di kyone labgi mare chetsan de those practicing and meditating kyone labgi mendo chetsan inji kenang lo la pe ken sao chigdo chetsan la bainra. So what Gela and I are saying is that Gela is saying we can translate it as those, but I'm saying in English, those practicing and meditating are very important for Dharma practitioners. It's not something that is said in the grammar because of the ing and because of verbs. Usually those are used with people and objects, not with ing verbs, right? So maybe we could say something like those two things, such as practicing and meditating, you know, it would refer to that. Those two aspects of practicing and meditating are very important for Dharma practitioners. Then it makes sense to translate it, right, Genla? Otherwise,
so
it's
how do you say that tezo khe chenpo re those are important,
right? Exactly. You can say that, yes, but because you're saying practicing and meditating, that's already what you're saying is very important. So in English, you don't need to say those unless you don't say practicing and meditating, or you say it in a previous sentence. That's why in this same sentence, those does not fit in the grammar in English. Yeah, that's
벽에라 양디 더블에 가인스나 최발라 냠네 단 곰자야 개첨버시다레 스와 식주디 태조 맨나 양디 그래 안 지제라 오 태조 개첨버레
exactly
태조대 가레레스나 태조대 가레스나 냠네 단 곰데레 세잔디 요나 디그레 맨나 양디 그래 디케바 요 마레 이나 양 태조대 가와 랍기 요레스나 냠네 단 곰라 랍기 요레
라레
those meditating, those practicing the Pyoge Labgi Mare.
So if we make a space, then we could put it. So if we don't, then it's rear. Again, like saying the same thing that in Tibetan, if we end the sentence and then we say Tetsoke Chimposhira Yore, those are very important, then yes, as a separate thing. So now maybe here, Genla, maybe we should put it in brackets. What do you think?
Oh, re. Takta bracket nangla. Look, Shana, ani koti Pogela Yonayan degree, Menayan degree, Keba Yomare.
Lasso. So
it is emphasized about Tinzo Yang Jack is a shell but turned out over. Yang Jackie.
Oh, dirangre, dinge ketcharepe.
Yang Jackie ketchato, Matoti Ketchambomare.
Lasso, taktare. Okay, so Gela and I are finding a consensus. So we're putting it in brackets because then if you're emphasizing, oh, those two things of practicing and meditating, those two actions or those two skills are very important for Dharma practitioners, then it makes sense to emphasize it like that. If not, then we don't need it in the sentence so much. So that's why we're making it optional. Okay, don't worry too much about this. Lasso. So now let's continue with the next one.
Lasso. Tene chibotangya tulu chegore.
So in order to enjoy oneself, one must relax. So we have the yakla here, which we had introduced in the table as showing the purpose. Or sorry, no. In order to. So in order to, or the action of kipotang, and then the kipotang is just nominalized with the yak. Okay, so in order to enjoy oneself, one must relax. Lasso, and then last one.
Lasso tene kenla ki yigse tangya la charchong chego resa. Okay, kenla ki yigse tangya la charchong chego resa. So
here giving you a preview of the lesson 16 reported speech that hopefully we will get the time to introduce to you. That is part of our plan at least. And so we have, just to explain it very quickly, I'm not going to go into it, but Genla key, the key here shows the agent of the speech. And here Sa is the way that we are reporting that speech is like Genla says, okay? There are other ways of doing that, but you will see it in the context of that lesson. So here, just understand that the Sa is the one that is reporting the speech and the Ki is showing who is talking. So Genla is saying or says, and his speech is here, Yikse Tanyala, Kipo Kyarjong Chegore. Oh, sorry, Kyarjong. Kyarjong Chegore. This is the speech. Okay, of Genla. So Genla says that one must review in order to take a rest. Okay? So that was just a little introduction. Now, the nominalizer ken. Ken or nien or ngen, as it is pronounced. Okay? I will write it. I haven't written it for you, so I will just write it here. It's either ngen or sometimes people pronounce as nien. Ra Genla.
Re to nye re nya nyen na nyen di yagatu nyen na nyen de me bachera.
Nyen you prefer instead of nyan na nyen. Yeah, nyan na nyen means the verb to
mare nyen na nyen di yagatu nyen na nyen di yaga.
I hear friends using nyen. That's why I wrote it.
Nyen na nyen to nye yin roa nya nyen na nyen. Di tenda hasi me tinzo ki mangbo lagitu. nga to khen yin la gra ti sab la oh san yin nga to nye yin pe Lhasa ke rang re this is just Lhasa dialect they use instead of ken Lhasa people use to nye yin instead of to khen yin wa san yin nga gomba la to khen yin and then Lhasa people say san yin nga gomba to nye yin also they use the la instead of gomba la they use ra okay gomba to nye yin so konzu get this nyen bo do yar Lhasa get so and then anzu get she the you get that the konzu get chenbo do you get wa anzu sindia anzu get she dang si do di gi dang dang si do di Lhasa get Lhasa dialect mare anzu get the you get la gre ina yang Lhasa get the yang Lhasa get rang re korang zo kaga chi yo des chikpa mare ina yang Lhasa da get the anzu changma ki khotup gre ani anzu get the tandu des kya chenbo do yo Himalaya miki khotup gre ani Lhasa miki khotup gre ani pyogi mi mangcheba ki khotup gre anzu dandang de you get ani di yang Lhasa la de gen zo yang Lhasa get yang ina yang ta ngazo ki 다들 그 도단 grammar structure 정말 Lhasa get ne ngazo temper de konzo 개첨벌에 be 개첨벌에
Genla is just saying that it's important to remind you, we've talked about it previously in other lessons, but just wanted to make sure this is very clear, that we are, in this class and in this course, we are trying to introduce you to the Central Tibetan dialect, Uke. It's called Uke. In our first introduction of the alphabet, in our video, we discussed it. And that means that is the dialect that is the most widespread, that would be understood by most of the Tibetan speakers from the Himalayan world in different regions of Tibet and outside of Tibet that speak a type of Tibetan language, okay? And so it's the most widespread, is the one that most people will be able to understand. And within this pronunciation and this dialect that we are introducing you to, we are using a lot of the structures that are actually borrowed from the Lhasa dialect, the dialect that is actually spoken in the Lhasa region. We are not fully teaching you the Lhasa dialect per se. It's a little different. That's not what we are learning here. But we are learning a lot of structures from that dialect itself. So we are borrowing a lot of it because it's kind of given the rules for a lot of the proper way of speaking grammatically. So a lot of what you hear us saying in class when we say, oh, well, this is from Lhasa dialect and this is why we're introducing it, it means that we are borrowing a lot of the grammatical structures from it. So Genla is saying the same thing here. The nominalizer is ken, mau, kana, ken, but a lot of speakers tend to borrow the pronunciation as it will be said by people coming from the region of Lhasa, which is nyen, a lot of times. Okay, so this happens a lot. There are a lot of cross-cultural and cross-linguistic experiences and things that are borrowed between different speakers in the Himalayan world. And so there isn't just one way of speaking or one way of using the particles and the nominalizers and the grammatical structures. And that's the beauty of this language that has a lot of variety. So again, I just wanted to emphasize that it's important that we all really understand what we are studying here. Thank you, Genla, for clarification. This is, yeah, important topic. Ja? Lasso. So just to briefly introduce Ken or Nyen, it doesn't need a lot of introduction or explanation on my side because it's very self-explanatory, really, even though, forgive the redundance. It means the one who, or sometimes in very specific cases, the thing which does something, like the bus that goes to the bus station, for instance. But usually it is used with animate objects, animate sentient beings, people. And usually it is the one who does a certain thing. And so it's very useful when you don't know a lot of vocabulary, as I was saying in the introduction, and you want to emphasize a specific type of maybe a profession or something like that. And so instead of saying, the cook or the chef, you'd say the one that cooks food. So it is used in that context very openly and widely. All right, so let's look at some examples. That way it'll become clear. So our first example, genla kuchi sunrona.
라서 드네 군가 파유라 네제카 드로케 망보여레 라서
So the Yongken here refers to people that come, the ones that come, okay? So I've translated it as there are many people that come to Nepal to do pilgrimage in the winter. It can also be understood as there are many people who come or many comers, which is a little strange to say, but that's the root meaning of it, okay? So I say people, just by.
Yes, Cynthia, I was thinking this like karma, like candy sometimes ERD double charge도.
Taktaregena. So this comer, but there are certain verbs in English that sound a little strange that way. So then saying people who or people that might sound a little bit more proper in English. Again, it's just a translation issue. It's not, the Tibetan is very clear about that. Lazo.
Lazo, tine, ngasani nekola dokenyin. Okay, so Lhasa people say, ngasani nekola donyeyin. Okay.
Right, exactly. So this, what does this mean? This is something that might sound a little strange to you. It means tomorrow, I tomorrow am the one going on pilgrimage, literally. So I am the one who will be going to pilgrimage tomorrow, who will be going on the pilgrimage tomorrow. So there's some kind of an emphasis, joken. So if you ask, oh, joken sure, let's say that we are in a group of people, you have to imagine a question or a scenario for this. You're with a group of people and some are going to go do pilgrimage and maybe some are going to just visit around some touristy areas. Let's say we're in Nepal, okay? And the group is divided into two, and let's say that I am the tourist guide and I want to know who are the people interested in doing pilgrimage in the sacred spots of the valley that we've suggested with our agency, and who is actually going to go just do some normal secular sightseeing and shopping and all that. So let's say that, you know, Genla is one of the people in the group who is going to do pilgrimage, then he will say this sentence, right, Genla?
Lare. Ngasani nekola dokenyin.
That's right. So that would be the context for this kind of sentence. So it's more emphatic than just saying nga drogi. When you say nga drokenyin, this is like I am one who is going. Okay, so like that. That's how it could be understood if you put it in the context. That makes it more clear. Hola, so tene sigdup shenda kuchiloro nangen.
Laso sungju la keje shegen mindu.
So this can be translated as no one is talking at the teaching. Literally, mindu, there is no what? Kecha sheken. This means somebody who is speaking, somebody talking, somebody who is making conversation. Where at the, so it could be that, of course, maybe a master is teaching and nobody's talking over that person speaking. That could be the kind of example here, for instance. Hola, so.
Laso tene tiring gumbala cheme pyuge mezang nga cheme pyuga chimbayin. Laso tiring gumbala cheme pyuge mezang nga cheme pyuga chimbayin.
We like this sentence because it's more elaborate and now you're able to identify all these aspects. So there is or there was, both can be used, especially because the end of the sentence is in the past tense. Okay, that's why I'm offering both. There is or there was nobody offering butter lamps at the stupa with the tsang. So this is, I'm translating it as, therefore, I went to offer butter lamps. Okay, so because this I went in the past tense is there, then the previous part of the sentence with the meitsang could be understood that maybe there's still nobody at the stupa today, and I went, or there was nobody at that time and I went, therefore. So we're not clear, except if we have more context. So both could be acceptable in this case. Ragenla, what do you think?
Lare.
Lasso touché. Okay, tene, next sentence.
Benzu Kangla Teblogen Tezo Loptuk Rebe. Benzu Kangla Teblogen Tezo Loptuk Rebe.
Are those people reading at the library students? So you see people reading and you want to know if those are students of Ranjunyeshe or if those are tourists or other kinds of people. This is what this sentence means. Beapo. And then last one.
근데 ngala keje shegen te ngansu ken lare. Ngala keje shegen te ngansu ken lare.
So the one talking to me or the one who is talking to me, we can say both in English, is our teacher. And what would be the context for this sentence? Meaning somebody asks you, hey, who's talking to you over there? And it's a friend of yours who is not in the class and who doesn't know Gencho Genla. And so you say, oh, the person who's talking to me is my teacher and not my classmate. Right? So this would be how you can understand. So Kecha Sheken, one who is talking, the one talking at that particular moment. So hopefully this has been clear. These topics are really important. Now coming are going to be now the second part of this lesson is going to be the sa that indicates the indirect object and the pa, which is more associated with past acts. So stay tuned for the next lecture on this topic, and hopefully you'll enjoy it. It's one of the most really exciting of our curriculum. I love it. So Genlan, thank you for your patience. Tujushe, Ani, Sanyi.
Sanyi Jeyong, Lasola.
Lasso, Shu Agenla.
Shugo.